Hello guys, and welcome to the White Rabbit Trading Channel. Before we begin, please take a moment to read the disclaimer below. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor and everything here is for educational purposes only. And if you find this analysis helpful, please consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Your support helps me create more content like this. It's not hard for you, but it's pleasant for me. Alright, let's dive in. Previously, we were looking at a few scenarios and setups that interested me. The main idea was to observe whether Bitcoin would form the low or high of the week first, and then base our targets and setups on that. If Bitcoin formed the high first, I was looking to target the lower level with a short setup. If it formed the low first, I was aiming for the weekend highs and mid-range, potentially even higher. What actually happened was that Bitcoin first moved down to form the weekly low and then moved up, hitting some profit targets from the long trades. Afterward, we had a second setup, since the short idea was based on whether Bitcoin formed the high first, and we saw it form the low first. The short trade was now targeting a potential higher low rather than the previous lows. Even though it could still go down there, I needed to aim for the support level instead of hopium targets for a new range low. Only if that range failed would I look for lower levels. In the end, both setups from last week played out nicely. I did mess up a little bit with the short entry because I got in later than planned, wanting to see some weakness first, as there were some signs of potentially higher prices. On the first attempt, I got stopped out. Only on the second attempt, once price broke structure, showed some Elliott wave Fibonacci invalidations, and revealed weakness, did I enter successfully. In the end, everything worked out well. While the long trade has not yet reached the full target, although some profits have been taken, the short hit its target on the same day, and a small portion is still running. Which brings us to where we are now. Bitcoin is still in the lower part of the range. This is the straightforward part of the explanation and example of what to look for. For now, I still consider the lower part of the range as support where I look for longs. Only if it breaks would I consider lower levels. Until that happens, there's no need to look for lower prices. This is just my personal view and I could be wrong. It's also okay if I'm wrong, because at some point the range will break either to the downside or upside. I've traded this low of the range multiple times, so being wrong once when it finally breaks is a risk I can handle. As I said, the low is support until it's not. The mid-range acts as resistance when price is below it and support when price is above it. The highs of the range I treat the same way as the lows, resistance until they break. Keeping in mind the overall bullish trend, there is a higher chance for this range to break to the upside, and we've already seen a new high, so potentially we could see another one. The beauty of ranges is that you can get opportunities at the highs for longs and keep them running if it breaks to the upside, and also take shorts in the higher part and let some portion run in case it breaks down. With that approach, even if one side breaks, the running trade will help cover losses from a failed break trade, and can even profit more on a bigger move. That's basically all one needs to know. This is the range, and we have to trade it. Now, let's take a closer look and add some other technical analysis ideas. On the daily time frame, we can see that price for now is rejected at the mid-range, which aligned with the short idea I took, and I'm currently in that trade. However, I wanted to talk a bit about timing and potential scenarios if we factor in time. The monthly average time for forming a high is on day 16, and in uptrends or bullish months, around day 18 to 21. We can see that price was at support on the 18th, and the thought was that this was likely not the time pivot for the high. If price were to make a new monthly high, it should start moving from there. We did see a bounce, but it wasn't very long, and around day 21, which matches the stats, we saw a rejection and a local high. Now, the question is whether it was the high for the month or not. If it was, then most likely Bitcoin will continue to range here unless it breaks down. That would mean Bitcoin set its monthly high basically in the first days of the month, which is one scenario. The second scenario is about time for lows and highs. By that I mean we can see Bitcoin forming its lows between day 8 and 14, and the highs around 9 to 12 days. If we look at the time it took for highs to form after lows were created, we can see that after every low, it takes around 8 days to form a high. This suggests we might see a high forming, or at least a local one, next week. Whether it's a new high or a lower high, we don't know. However, it could offer a tradable move up. If it breaks Friday's rejection point, which occurred on the 21st for the local monthly high, it could mean this isn't actually the local monthly high, and that this might be a month where Bitcoin puts in its high later. It's happened before, so we might see our other targets hit. To clarify, we have two scenarios based on time. 1. Bitcoin remains in this range without making a new high beyond the 21st, or just attempts a small push. In that case, we have a few inside levels I won't mark on the chart now, to avoid clutter. Essentially, we'd be trading the local support and resistance levels, local SFPs of highs and lows, and the intraday structure within the range. Nothing special. Price could make a higher low or, in the best case, a swing failure pattern, SFP, which would interest me. Alternatively, it could dip slightly lower. On the upside, we have a local order block that acts as resistance, and if I see signs of weakness there, I would be interested in that. In this scenario, we spend more time in this range until the monthly close, and we start the next month around here. Then we would have new data and timing to consider at the end of this month. The second scenario is that price does make a move up and tries for higher prices. In that case, next week we could see Bitcoin start to push higher, forming a new high going into the last week of February. As mentioned, from the range perspective, looking at the time it usually takes for a new high to form after the low, it could be quicker or slower price move. The slower example is shown on the chart, where we see a move up aligning with the range time, plus near the end of the month, Tuesday through Thursday. We could then see a high of the week formed, followed by a move back down to the range lows or a higher low if price is strong enough to hold and keep the structure intact. Then we might see continuation into Friday and a weekend range near the upper part. In that scenario, we would also be near the monthly close, and as always, we prepare for monthly moves. We know that price typically forms a high or low first and might fill some wicks before moving. Based on that, we can make a plan. For one scenario, I'm already thinking ahead. If price is in a range and reaches the upper part, not necessarily the exact high of the range, but an area of liquidity and resistance, it could be a level worth looking at for a setup. With the monthly close around that level, if the market stays somewhat bullish, we could first see a move down to form a monthly low. If price is at resistance and shows weakness, failing to break out, I'll just continue trading the range data and take into consideration that lows often form around day 14, give or take. That is quite a bit of information. Combine it with the monthly open, possibly around 100K, hypothetically, leaving a bigger wick to the downside which often gets partially filled. Also, the average time to form a low. And looking now at the monthly stats for March, I see the average bearish move is around 14%, with a median of around 9%. On the chart, 14% down would basically return us to the range's low, or potentially even create a new low. But again, for that scenario to be relevant, price needs to make a move up and close there first. We don't have this data yet, so we'll watch for it at the end of the month. Returning to the trade itself, for me, it would be enough to short if I see weakness based simply on resistance and structure, and also if timing lines up. If I don't see weakness on an impulsive move up, entering a short aggressively could end badly if price keeps going up. So I'd need to see structure change or, if I'm being aggressive, at least some liquidity taken and then a lower time frame entry trigger. Of course, I will update everything in the Discord channel. One more observation, looking at the time data for this range from lows to highs, we see that lows often formed within around 14 days, and most of them ended up near the lower part of the range, not all, but most. Then we got the move up, creating a new high sometimes within an 8-day window, or sometimes it just ranged, as we see now. So logically, if we're in a range, I'm looking for another move up in that time window. If everything goes well and price hits the upper zone, either my first or second level, I'll look for weakness and a move down to the next low based on time. That does not mean it will always play out perfectly. Sometimes price breaks, forms higher lows or lower highs, etc. In conclusion, all of this could be wrong if the market does something else, and if my plan doesn't work out, it happens. The market doesn't care about my plans. Price could also go down from here, create an SFP, or pump straight up. There are countless scenarios. I will adjust my plans as soon as we get new data. But these plan ideas help me know what I want to see and how to trade if these things happen. It wouldn't be useful if I shared multiple ideas but had no clue how to handle them. Many little details can change, and I'll update you in the Discord for the bigger picture. This is not a prediction, it's just data and my interpretation of it, showing how I work with it. Someone else with the same data might interpret it differently. Please take whatever useful information you can and combine it with your own view of the market. Some people might notice the 14% average loss next month and become very bearish, hoping for the mid-80s price level to be hit. Maybe after being wrong repeatedly during this range, they will finally be right once, and I'll be wrong that time and I can handle that. Or, some people might have stopped watching after I said, it's a range, and that's all you need to know, which is also enough information if you have your own confluences and a trading plan. With all that said, that's it for today's update. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'll keep you updated as the market develops. Until then, trade safe, and I'll see you in the next one.